Hey everybody. Well, I just thought that I would try to read some stories. I can't be there with you guys when you're getting ready to go to bed, so I thought maybe sometime that if you guys have been good, Mom and Dad might be able to turn this on and you could listen to a story before you went to bed. So we'll see how this works. I like reading. Maybe you like listening to stories. I hope so. Uh, so if everybody will sit down and listen, I'll try to tell a story. Um, I picked out something from a book called Scandinavian Folk and Fairy Tales. So, there's a picture of it. See if you can see that better. Okay. Scandinavia is a part of the world way up north in Europe. It has Norway and Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, and it's very cold there. It can be very cold there. It's way up north towards the Arctic Circle, and the people there are pretty much just like us. Back when these stories were written, a lot of them were farmers, or they lived in a small town, small villages, and much like the farmers in our country, same thing. They lived very simply, didn't have a whole lot. There wasn't any TV, there wasn't any video games, there wasn't very many things to do for entertainment. So a lot of times people would just sit around and tell each other stories, and that was a lot of their entertainment. And that's where a lot of these stories come from, because somebody would tell it to their kids, and then their kids would tell it to their kids, and so on and so on and so on. And then they finally get down to where somebody says, I think I'm going to write a book about all that stuff because that's pretty cool. So, anyway, the first story is from Norway. And, yeah, this section is Tales from Norway. I'm not really sure what that little dude is there. I think it looks like a little elf or something, but I'm not really sure. I don't know what he's got in his hand. Anyway, so first story is called The Man Who Was Going to Mind the House. Now, when they mean mind the house, they're like the man was going to take care of the house. In this story, normally the woman, the wife, would stay home and take care of the house and cook the food and take care of the babies. And the man would go out and do whatever kind of work he needed to do out on the farm. And this man decided he was going to switch places, I guess, with his wife. So there is a picture to begin with. Let's see. Right there. All right, so that's a picture of them, the man and his wife in their house. Okay. There was once upon a time a man who was always cross and surly, and he was always telling his wife that she didn't do enough work in the house. So one evening in the haymaking time, he came home and began to scold her all over the house. Dear me, don't get into such a temper, said the wife. Tomorrow we will try to change our work. I'll go with the mowers and mow the hay, and you can stay at home and mind the house. Well, yes, the husband rather liked that, and he was quite willing for his part. Early next morning the wife took a scythe, which is a long curved blade, on her shoulder, and went out into the fields with the hay mowers to mow. But the man was going to do the work in the house. He thought he would churn the butter first of all, which is a very hard job. But when he had churned for a while, he became thirsty and went down to the cellar to get some cider. While he was busy filling his glass, he heard that the pig had gotten into the room upstairs. Away he ran up the cellar stairs with the tap for the cider barrel in his hand, just to see the pig didn't upset the churn. But when he saw that the pig had already knocked the churn over and stood there looking up the fine cream, which was running all over the floor, he got so furiously wild that he forgot the cider barrel and turned round on the pig. He got hold of it in the doorway and gave it such a tremendous kick it kicked the pig right out the door. All at once he remembered the tap he had in his hand. When he went down to the cellar, all the cider had run out of the barrel. Then he went back to the larder, which they kept the cream, to fill the churn again. and so he commenced churning once more for butter he would have by dinner time. When he had churned some time, he recollected that the cow, which they kept at home, hadn't been let out of the cow-house, and hadn't had a straw of hay or anything to drink, although it was late in the day. He thought it was too far to take the cow to the field where she generally grazed, so it struck him that he would put her on the roof. That's kind of crazy. The cottage had a turf roof, or a grass roof. Well, that makes a little bit more sense then. And there was a splendid crop of grass growing there. The cottage lay close to a steep little hill, and if he put a plank between this and the roof, he thought he could easily get the cow up there. But he could not leave the churn very well, because the baby was crawling about on the floor, and he thought the child might easily upset it. Now, he's got a pig running around in the house, and he's got a baby crawling around in the house. I don't know about this. I don't think he's minding the house very well, to tell you the truth. So he took the churn on his back and went out, but he left the baby. So he takes the churn on his back and he goes out, but he thought he'd better water the cow first before he put her on the roof. Sounds like a good idea, huh? So he took a bucket to get some water from the well. But as he stooped down to pull the bucket up, all the cream ran out of the churn over his neck and down into the well. It would soon be dinner time, and still he hadn't gotten any butter, so he thought he'd better boil the porridge for dinner, and he hung a pot with water over the fire. When he had done this, he began to feel afraid that the cow might fall off the roof and break her legs or her neck, so he went up to the roof to tie her up. The one end of the rope he tied around the neck of the cow, and the other he let down the chimney and tied around his leg when he came back down, for the water was boiling already, and he must put the oatmeal in and begin to make the porridge. While he was stirring it, the cow fell off the roof and dragged the man up the chimney by the rope which was tied to his leg. There he stuck, and the cow hung outside against the wall between heaven and earth, for she could neither get up nor down. The wife had waited in 7 lengths and breadths for her husband to come and call the people home to dinner, but she saw no sign of him, so she thought at last that she would wait no longer, but go home. When she saw the cow hanging so awkwardly, she went at once and cut the rope with her blade, but at the same moment her husband came down the chimney, and when the wife went inside, he was standing on his head in the porridge pot. And that's how the man minded the house. I think this is a picture of afterwards. She looks like she's kind of having a good time there. She just looks like she's combing the hair out of the porridge, combing the porridge out of his hair. He doesn't look very happy. Okay, well, anyway, that was our first story. I will read another one on the next video. All right, good night, everybody.